Hey folks, it's Nate bringing you another Iron Age comic review. Today we are looking at Soulfinder Infinite Ascent. Right off the bat, I have to note this is a new presentation for the series. As you can see, a floppy saddle stitch, which is a fancy way of saying it's bound with staples, rather than a hardback, perfect bound copy, even thread bound copy. And nice. Iconic Comics, I don't know if they're doing this as an offering going forward, or if this is just an experiment, or if this is something they decided to do with copies going forward. Regardless, I really like this. And if this can be offered at a cheaper price point, hardbounds, I think this is a great way to produce both samples and just copies that people buy and give away or read a lot cheaper. I like it. The presentation is nice and slick. The interior have that nice light magazine finish to it. It's not super glossy. It is a little glossy, as you can probably see in the light there, but it's still very readable. People who have watched this channel for a while know I don't like a really high gloss on my comics because I find them distracting and sometimes detrimental to the art on the page. This is a really good finish. And it feels nice in the hand. Not going to hold up to repeated readings as well as a hardbound book will, but this is very nice. Furthermore, let me note that yes, this is a review copy. I did get this from Douglas Ernst. I did get it ahead of time before it was available for the general public to purchase. That was very kind of him. I feel very privileged to have received this. And that is something that audience should note of. It's sometimes danced around, but the fact of the matter is, a reviewer is offered a copy of a product from somebody that has a potential to bias their opinion. There is a reason reviewers like Angry Joe are well respected for their constant commitment to pay for all of the products they review with their own money. Now, I would have bought this anyway, and in fact, just to get a hardbound version of this, I am willing to shell out the cover price in addition to this. But just the offering of a copy can bias a review, and all I can do in this case is make the audience well aware of the fact that this is a complimentary copy and it has the potential to bias my review. I'm going to do my best to offer a fair and balanced review, in spite of the fact that this copy, I'm just doing my due diligence. Everyone is aware of the lay of the land. That said, I have a lot of thoughts about this book. First of all, let's talk about the art, because that is our format here. This is illustrated by Matthew Weldon. Matthew Weldon, a great artist. Has good paneling. He has really good sense of action scene. He has great line work and layouts. Just opening to a random page, a great action scene, great expressions. We see good anatomy. I think if I had one complaint, two complaints to leverage against the art here, color palette is a little muddy. I have seen other Weldon books, and let me double check to see if it does the coloring, because this may actually be critique colorist rather than Weldon. Colors by Jean Francois. I don't know how to pronounce your last name there, Jean. His coloring is a little bit muddy in places. Like, there's nothing offensive about it. There's nothing wrong with it. Nothing looks off in any place. But there are some scenes, particularly more supernatural scenes, that can look, the colors can be a little dull or a little dark. At this page, not a lot of contrast there. I could do with a little more contrast. I know this is an important moment. It's an emotional moment that we're supposed to take note of. The coloring does kind of emphasize that. But I could have used a little more contrast on that page. On this page, for example, everything just looks very green. And again, there are supernatural shenanigans going on some of these pages. and that cast can kind of contribute to them, but not aesthetically pleasing. I think you could have achieved something similar with different coloring techniques. So on that front, I would like to see a little bit better coloring, and I think um, typically Weldon could do some work on his voting. When you are the artist on something like this, you are the actor for all of the characters, and sometimes I'm not sure what exact emotional beat the character is trying to produce is. For example, here early on, we have Detective Chua harping on the um, mortician. That's not the right word. The guy, pathologist, I think is at the morgue, and face just looks weird. I'm not sure. Frustrated, angry, hearing and condescending. I'm not quite sure what that attitude is be. By the same token, here at the bottom, we have Chua. I'm not sure. Again, I'm not sure what face he's making there. Is angry? Is he annoyed? Is he laughing at something? Happy? I mean, it looks like it's a happy expression, but really fit the tone of the dialogue. There are a few moments like this scattered throughout the book. They're pretty rare, and all in all, for the most part, the characters emote properly. But there are a few points like that where I think a little more attention to the characters' faces and details there would have sold the story a bit better. Just something to keep an eye on, especially as you are editing and improving art throughout the process. Let's talk about writing, which is, for me, the really, really big thing in a story like this. Writing is pretty interesting. And there are a whole bunch of things that I have to bring up as constant themes as I review Soulfinder books. The first and most important one is that Soulfinder series is about an order of Catholic exorcist warrior priests. That's really cool as a premise right off the bat. It also brings with it a very specific set of hurdles. A exorcist priest should be a man of unshakable faith. The One of the great struggles in an exorcism story is the confrontation between the beliefs of a mere mortal and a supernatural force beyond their understanding. And the thing about a man of great faith is the audience does not share that man's faith. It is very difficult to bring the audience into the life of a man of faith, because faith is such a personal thing. It is based on your personal experiences. It's based on your upbringing, parents, as well as a number of, honestly, revelations that you have as you grow into adulthood and into faith. Very difficult to tell a story about a man of powerful faith. And at the heart of the Soulfinder series are two such men. This is a difficult hurdle for Douglas Ernst to overcome. And in this story, once again, he challenges that hurdle, and I think for the most part overcomes it. Talk a little bit about the specific details that he uses in this particular story, but overall, I think an impressive achievement. He has 3 times challenged this hurdle, and so far, other than maybe tipping the hurdle a little bit with his foot, he has cleared it very well each. The second thing, and I think at this point, pretty important thing, that there is continuity to this story now. And this story does a pretty good job of not letting that continuity drag it down and still maintaining it so that people who have been following that continuity feel like they are being respected. There are a lot of references in here, previous book, Soulfinder Black Tide, that are nice. They are not load bearing. The story does not depend on the audience to understand them, but they do feel like nice little payoffs for have been following this point. Now, if you've seen my other reviews, you know that I thought the first Soulfinder was a very good personal story that introduced us to Father Redder, Patrick Redder being the protagonist of the Soulfinder series. It introduced us to Father Redder, introduced us to his cast, particularly Father Crane, who his predecessor and mentor in the Soulfinder project, and to Detective Chua, who is a detective in what is the name of the town? Still something like that. One second. Steepleton, name of the town they live. So Detective Chua is part of the Steepleton department. A very good character, and he's a very important character in that he is grounded or normie kind of a character. All of three of these men are Roman Catholic. Obviously, Father Redder and Father Crane are priests. Detective Chua is a lay person. But they share this in common and functions very well as a common bond. I'm actually reminded of a book I read called Rivertown about the experiences of a man who taught English overseas in China, and he attended the Roman Catholic Church in the town he was in. He actually connected better with the priest there and with the congregation there. For a while, he shared more of a language than he shared with the rest of the town. And there's something very powerful as a foundation for a relationship in their shared Catholicism. So I myself am not a Catholic. I don't share this particular aspect of their lives. I can see the way it unites them and helps them discuss the issues they encounter. So beyond that, the second issue introduced us more to the outward-facing aspects of Soulfinder order that Father Redder belongs to. And Father Crane and Detective Chua were all kind of drafted in helping the Navy out with case of possession on submarines. And that was more of an action-adventure story, less of a personal exploration of the character of Father Redder. And I was curious what we were going to get here. They are climbing a mountain in this one. There's a spider demon here, spider of Satan to be exact. And so just at a glance, this feels like it's going to be outward-facing action-adventure story. And most part, truth in that. But this actually, I think, blend different kinds of stories because we get an outward-facing adventure story where Chua and Redder have to climb a mountain. Father Crane not trained for this. Old, his bones are too weary climbing up. And result of this, again, it looks like a standard action adventure. Get a strong facing flavor to the story as well, but not as much Father Redder, and rather for Detective Chua. Very interesting. I like Chua. I think he's probably my favorite character. Not that I think the other characters are bad. My favorite. And insight into what makes Chua tick over the course of this. But at the same time, Father Redder is the antagonist. So we get him, his element as a priest rather than strictly as an exorcist, which is a nice blending of Father Redder is a small town priest and Father Redder is a kick butt combat exorcist. I like it. We are seeing different kinds of stories that Ernst can execute a small stable of characters in a very simple concept. Very, very nifty work. Talk a little bit about the details because I do have some criticism here that we want to take a look at. So first of all, we get a very, very fast introduction of the basic premise. We start, as all great stories do, with a dead body. There's, I think, two great ways to start a story. One is with an action scene, and a lot of comics do that. But the other, I think, is with a dead body, and that's what we get. Story. Great opening. Immediately makes us want to know on. And then find out what's going on very, very quickly. This is one of my criticisms here is we get a lot thrown at us pages. Basically, Redder's mission briefing. And on these more outward facing stories, uh, Soulfinder Blacktide and Soulfinder Infinite got a very quick mission brief kind of couple of pages very early in the story. There's nothing wrong with that per se, and I didn't have to go back and consult these pages later in the story. I did get other additional details that I needed to recall from here, referenced again later when they were in the story, which is good, but it does kind of make me wonder, do we need this much text on these 2 pages in order to make the story work? And I think that it does serve the purpose of making it very clear we are dealing with competent professionals. This kind of professional chatter may not necessarily be things the audience follows with or retains over the story, but presenting it does make them look very professional. It makes them look like they're on top of their game. They know all the facts they need to know. They have come prepared for this situation. That said, I would probably try to thin maybe 1 or 2 bubbles off of both of these pages. Because it is a lot to take in, especially at the very beginning of the story. After that, we get a very important scene, I think, in this. Father Redder going to visit parents of the girl whose body we just saw. This is important for a couple of reasons. First of all, it puts Redder's skin in the game. This is not just a random body that he's found. The demon who is at work is not threatening a bunch of people that Redder has never met before, as was the case to a certain extent in Blacktide. He didn't know any of the Navy men who were endangered on the submarine. He just went there because he was Vatican's combat exorcist. Here, the evil of this particular demon has touched people that Redder knows and cares about, and in fact has a spiritual responsibility. So seeing him go here and speak to these parents is a very important moment in the story for Redder, for our understanding of his character, and for our understanding of the stakes of the story. Gemma's parents are understandably distraught. Well, actually, I should say they are the parents of 2 victims. So the body that we see, the body of Violet Russo, and Gemma Russo is her sister, missing. So Redder goes to inform those about this, offers them some comfort, but Mrs. Russo is extremely distraught because talks about how she has prayed. She has prayed to saints, God, and the result has been she learns her daughter has died. She's distraught about this. She's upset. She smashes her little icon of Saint Anthony, and argues with her husband in front of Father Redder. This is a good scene that it does establish that these are real people. Deaths have real consequences. My problem with it is that this is not a thread that runs very far through the story. To a certain extent, it does. That so is trying to hold it together. He doesn't feel like he's helping his wife. Father Redder offers him some advice. It's good advice, although it reads as right. And there's not a whole lot you can do about that kind of situation. Advice tends to feel kind of trite. That's just the way it is. It can be perfectly good functional advice, and it will still sound trite when it comes out. That's just one of the really difficult parts of having to deal with unexpected, unfair, unjust grief. Grief is hard enough for mourning someone full life and died through no fault of anyone else. Age, still hard to deal with. Have anything else added on top of that, it just becomes exponentially more hard to deal with. And there aren't really any words that can come out of your mouth that make it better. helping people with grief is not about talking to them. It requires time spent. It requires love shown action. It requires comfort that not come with words, but rather with your presence, with the reassurance that though someone thing from a person's life, there are other people who care for them and love them, not in the place of, but really hard to articulate this. And I don't really have a problem with um, try or try here. Um, I would have liked to see more than just talk. I would have liked uh, a little more signs of Redder's presence and comfort family. I know that a pastor or a priest cannot do as much of that as they would ever like to. Um, Not a replacement for family and friends, but he's part of that network. I would like to see a little more of that running through the story. That is one of the ways we take a very abstract thing we call faith and we make it a real thing in the around us. And for a story about a man of faith, I would have liked to see a little bit more of that. Unfortunately, we will not see the Russos at the very end of the book, and I do understand why. It is a very full story. Um, Maybe there wasn't a lot of room, more of this thread running through. That said, I think with this being such an outward-facing story where Redder spends so little time in the larger community, may have been better to cut this line entirely. It's 4 pages of all, and this I want to say an 84-page book. Pro tip: page numbers in your book really help. Um, but yeah, so I don't know as you recoup a lot of space by cutting 4 pages. There is a lot of internal character work tied into the main characters, and this kind of a through line I think could have been executed on better in a. I don't think it's bad. Resolution works pretty well for the development that Red gets over the course of the story, but I would have liked to see it unpacked more. This is a part of Redder's responsibilities we haven't seen a whole lot of yet, and it is something I am looking forward to, or maybe a little more depth in another work. Of course, um, Father Redder is a combat exorcist, and I expect a lot of his stories will revolve around the Soulfinder order rather than revolving around Redder finding demons out in the wild. So, but hopefully we will get one or two that are um, a little more focused on Redder's home community because I'm very interested in that. And these moments we get of it are interesting, but I would like to see more of them somewhere. Okay, now that I've talked probably too much about that, let's move forward. We see Redder and Chua training for their mission. Man, I know this particular page was shown on Twitter already, but it still looks good in the book too, guys. There's great art there. Have a fantastic looking 2-page spread as Redder and Chua airfield, and they are headed out to Shenzhou, which is a independent nation in fight with China, but isn't actually China. And they are climbing up Dragon's Tooth Mountain, get to a monastery where Steve Pauk, I don't know how you pronounce it, is holed up. He's running a human trafficking and drug trafficking ring, and he's responsible for the drugs that killed Violet Russo, and out to bring him to justice. All right, pretty great story. It is believed that Pauk is possessed by the spider of Satan, a demon. Shows perhaps something supernatural happens when you try and climb the dragon's tooth, and it is composed of several teams Navy SEALs that have gone on to extract Pauk. Very interesting stuff. There are several encounters with powers of fighter Satan. Redder seeing kind of delusional vision, and I do like the coloring on this page. It has those weird tones that show us this is supernatural vision, but at the same time, the tones contrast enough that it doesn't feel like it makes the page muddy. Unlike some of the scenes that happen at night later on in the monastery. So to make a long story short, they get up the mountain. There's some very good moments. And Redder here. We learn a little bit about Chua's character arc. He has some kind of tension between him and his parents, and we begin to work out. I don't remember if this was the other two. I didn't go back and check. We begin to work out here that Chua is adopted. He has birth parents who have abandoned him in some way, then later taken in by foster or adoptive parents. Not clear right off the bat exactly what happened. But we managed to get that supernatural visions that demons use to oppress Redder and as they climb the mountain. The bond between these two men emphasized as they help each other snap out of these delusions that there's really good character work there. Look inside the characters at what has shaped them, and also characters that are most important to us as we see ways they build each other up and help each other overcome difficulty. So they arrive in the monastery, and they find Gemma Russo, which makes their mission a little more difficult because Redder is not going to leave her behind. And I think this is a good thread because we know that he is concerned about her parents, has a duty to minister to both spiritually and through charity, and one heck of a real world act of charity, a real act of service part, and he decides he's going to bring Gemma back with him because he has a unique duty to her as a part of his parish, and a lot of stories about if Redder was just a super spy. This would be a questionable decision, I think, because going to save one person have the same obligation to every other person that's being drugged out in this temple. However, because Gemma is a part of his parish, I think it's fair to say that his moral obligation to her is higher than his obligation to other people there. And so we managed to pull off this rescue without really feeling like Redder has somehow made a moral failing regarding the other people. Because a lot of these people are, to a certain extent, they're volition. And in Redder is really only has a place to intervene in Gemma's case because he's a priest. Excuse me, not pastor. So I think whether intentional or not, this story manages to sidestep one of the issues that come up when you get a hero save one person out of a whole bunch of people in a bad situation. That said, let's talk a little bit about Stephen Hawke. Look at that character design. Oh man, I got chills the first time I saw that. That is a great design, right? Right away, something abnormal is on here, something aberrant against the laws of nature. Before he starts climbing up walls and throwing things, throwing people. There's just a long action scene as Redder and Chua rescue the girl and make their escape and have a whole bunch of things go right and wrong. And in the end, of course, good guys get out. Not everything goes. They get to an extraction point where Father Crane is supposed to meet them with a chopper. But Pauk's men have guns and rocket launchers, manage to blow up a getaway vehicle. And then The chopper has to them to go fight off a caravan of Pox's men who are closing in, and they can't afford to come back and pick up the team. This is the one thing that was a little sketchy at first. Um, Crane tells us that the helo was damaged and they had to take off. Um, I am a little unclear exactly what was wrong with the helo. Don't see don't see them taking a lot of fire. In fact, the helicopter flying away. There's no smoke. I would have liked a little more indication of that. That said, this is a really effective moment, especially get a reminder of why Redder is not a soldier. And right here in this panel, this is super effective, and it just goes by really fast. But it reminds us who Redder is and why he's not a soldier. Half a page. So, ultimate aid climb the mountains. On the Dragon Tooth, there's another mountain called the Sky Cathedral, where a bunch of paranormal activity has been reported. People climb up there, they never go back down. Some people think there's some kind of supernatural gateway there you can go through and wind up other places. And our soul finders decide they are going to roll the dice on this. They're going to continue up Sky Cathedral and see maybe we can get out there. Now, this is very difficult. We see how physically taxing it is for everyone involved. And since they have to take Stephen Hawk with them, we get him there constantly poking and pulling at they are that he's climbing with. And for the most part, although physically this is about climbing the mountain, it's really about internal struggle for all three members of our cast. Father Crane get a really important question and wondering about for a while. We know that Father Crane is Soulfinder 77. We know that Father Redder is Soulfinder 79. Where is Soulfinder 78? Why have we never heard about them? My assumption was always that it's a big world out there. You had to have some Soulfinders elsewhere. But it turns out that actually Soulfinder 78 was something that Father Crane knew. But that they seem to have been quite close, good friends. Never get this paid off. This is setup, but it's effective setup. It works because learn Soulfinder 78, someone the get under Crane's skin. That exposition that is also character. Very nice. Very nice. For his part, Redder is mostly focused on whether he can get everyone out. As we saw in that really brief flashback at the helo. And as we know, if we've read the other volumes, Redder was part of a unit where not everyone got out. Very concerned about that. For Chua's part, he actually gets bitten by a spider. Starts having visions and flashbacks. And we see that he was an orphan on the street who was picked up, and he has never quite forgiven the parents who abandoned him on the street. And that is his conflict for the it's an interesting parallel between Chua and Gemma Russo, who Gemma has turned her back on her biological parents, just like Chua has. But unlike Chua, Gemma has not been abandoned by her parents, so there's an interesting contrast there, and I think it explains pretty well why I have thinking about this so much over the story. It's not just something that the demons show us in supernatural flashbacks, it's really something that is on his mind for other reasons. At the end of this, we get an interesting moment. They find this natural gateway, go through, and actually only from Chua's point of view. He has a vision, meets a person there. I believe this person is intended to be an avatar for the Holy Spirit. Um, and they have a discussion as he tries to wrestles with this unforgiveness that he carries in his heart. A very difficult thing for Christians. Christians are called on to forgive other people as they have been forgiven by God. And this is an aspect of that challenge of showing a character of faith. You have to show that they have weaknesses, they have flaws, they are open to temptation, but also that they have that deep spiritual grounding that lets them confront the kinds of supernatural cases of things like demon possession. Um, Tua is a particularly interesting case because he is a lay person. Um, he is not a member of the clergy. He has a faith comparable to most of us, a faith comparable to a regular person. And idea that you can do great things with a bit of faith is addressed in the Bible. And there are some nice um, callbacks to that in this story. Um, However, I don't know if people who are not familiar with the faith of a mustard seed and the ability to command a mountain to move are going to be able to parse this as well as somebody stories from the Bible, those parables, those illustrations. So I don't, and on top of that, I don't know if there is a good way to signpost those who aren't familiar with that part of the Bible. There is an idea in literature in general of the great conversation that every story that is written is also alluding to, and in fact in dialogue with a number of other stories. They draw their imagery, where they draw their language, where they draw their mythology from. And of course, Christianity has its mythology. Christians believe that mythology is true, as most religions have their own mythology. And I suppose it is okay to include that mythology and just say, well, if you want to know more about that part of the mythology, you just have to go read it. Um, that said, I think if I was writing this story, I would have tried to find a way to signpost it. Just not sure whether that would make it better or worse. Some of these things you have to make a call on as a writer on your own. Doug has made a specific call here. I respect it. I'm just not sure it's the call I would have made. So we get the conclusion. Our heroes come out of the sky portal and they arrive in Israel, which is a thematically appropriate place to arrive because it's land. Now, I don't know if anything's going to come of that or not, but it is a nice little capstone. Since you have to go all the way to a rogue nation that's in tight with China to use this teleportation portal, don't think it's going to become a plot hole, and it's not like they have the Stargate at the bottom of the mountain they want. Our story concludes with a resolution for Redder and the Russos, or at least closing off of that story. And again, we don't get it feels like there was an evolution of this relationship in the time that Redder was training, and get to see. And I can understand why. Just a little feels like we missed most of the development that brought us to. Other than that, it is very strong. It does close off for all of the characters involved, except for that little bit we got from Father Crane and Finder 78. That is clearly meant to stay open plot thread. Pretty good stuff. Pretty good stuff. I still think Black Tide is probably my favorite of these. I really like some of the character work done in there, especially with Father Crane. I think when Father Crane squared off against Black Tide, there was a really great part of that confrontation I liked. More about that. Watch my review of that one. And it set up and payoff there. I think the strongest work that Ernst has done. But Infinite Ascent, very good, very well structured work. Um, Again, accessible to anyone. You don't have to be Catholic or Christian. Understand the things characters are building on, and I think it makes struggles that they have pretty accessible. Again, I just think that a little bit in the mission part of the story, so to speak, is a little bit dense, runs the risk. I do think the storyline with Mystico could have used a little more room. There's so much space in these in terms of how much they cost to draw and print. I probably would have cut that part myself. That's just and I think that in the future, Doug would be well served have a storyline like that that is expanded on a lot more over the course. But Infinite Ascent, very, very worthwhile addition to that. I hope that we will see available in both floppy and hard copy. Floppies are great to share around with people. Hard copy looks great on the shelf. Of course, I haven't looked at a hard copy of this, but as long as they continue using API printing and their quality doesn't drop any, I'm confident that the hard copy will. So I give Soulfinder Infinite Ascent a recommendation to, but only after you have read the rest of the series. I think this book in particular benefits more from having background characters that you get Soulfinder Demons match and continuity with Soulfinder Black Tide. Really nice cherry on top of a well written. So go and check it out when you get a chance. That's all I've got for you today, and plenty for today if you ask me. So let me know what you think down in the comments below. There's a like button and a subscribe button there. You can use as you see fit, and I will talk to you later.